Welcome back to my channel. Celeb Buzz, please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. Steve McQueen was a tough fighter. He was really good at being tough because he had that toughness inside him. Steve McQueen left behind more than just cool cars and great movies. He left a secret business empire, a hidden treasure room, a shocking last will, and one family member who got nothing. Years later, people found amazing things that turned stories into millions of dollars. What started as Hollywood stories became something much darker, showing secrets nobody expected. The deeper people looked, the more twisted everything became. And it's still not over. Steve McQueen wasn't born famous. He was born into a mess. His dad left before he could even talk. His stepdad was mean and violent, and his mom left him behind more than once. When he was 14, McQueen went to a tough school called Boys Republic in Chino, California. There, staying alive was more important than reading books. At that school, he learned to fight back, to depend only on himself, and to trust nobody. That rough childhood didn't destroy him, it made him harder. McQueen's bad attitude became like a shield to protect him, and later it helped him sell movies. He didn't care about fitting in or following rules. He had no interest in being nice to people, and somehow that made him special. Movie makers hated the drama he caused, but they loved the money he brought in. Before he became famous, McQueen joined the Marines. He fought with his bosses and got thrown in jail more than once, but he finished his time there and later used that tough experience to make his movie roles better. That sense of danger made people believe he was real on screen. He wasn't pretending to be tough, he was just being himself. In Hollywood, McQueen didn't chase after movie roles chase after him. He wouldn't show up on time, wouldn't follow the written scripts, and sometimes just walked away from movie sets. But the people watching movies didn't care about any of that. His presence on screen made people forget about all the chaos he caused. By the 1960s, he was one of the highest paid movie stars in the whole world. The movie called The Great Escape shot him up to superstardom. He didn't talk much in that film, but his silent stares said more than pages and pages of talking. The motorcycle stunt in that movie became legendary and famous. Even though another person did the actual dangerous jump, it still added to the McQueen legend. He seemed cool, fearless, and untouchable. Fans couldn't get enough of him. After that came the movie Bullet, where he did his own dangerous driving stunts through the streets of San Francisco. That car chase scene set a new standard for how action movies should be made. The green Mustang car in that movie became a piece of American culture and a golden part of McQueen's story. Years later, that same Mustang car sold for $37 million at an auction. The choices he made while filming had value far beyond just his paycheck. When he wasn't filming, McQueen hated Hollywood parties. He wore blue jeans to fancy movie premieres, skipped press events where reporters wanted to talk to him, and stayed away from the spotlight. But that mystery only made him more valuable and wanted. Movie makers knew he was difficult to work with, but audiences didn't care at all, so the movie studios kept paying him more and more money just to show up and be in their films. McQueen started to change how Hollywood worked. In the 1968 movie, The Thomas Crown Affair, he demanded $750,000 up front, which was a huge amount of money at that time. Then came the movie The Towering Inferno, where he made a smart deal that gave him a piece of the movie's profits. That move earned him over $12 million. He didn't just make money from acting, he made history in Hollywood business deals. And it didn't stop there at all. McQueen charged $50,000 just to read a movie script if he decided he didn't want to do the movie. He still kept all that money. Movie studios were desperate to work with him because they knew he would sell lots of movie tickets. He used that high demand to control everything from what clothes he wore to how the cameras filmed him. What most people didn't know was that McQueen was also building up wealth in other smart ways. He collected cars, motorcycles, and expensive watches, hundreds of them. He bought land, put money into rare collectible items, and owned houses and property in California, Mexico, and Idaho. He wasn't flashy about showing off his wealth, but he was very smart with money. While other movie stars spent their money recklessly and foolishly, McQueen quietly built a business empire. One of his best kept secrets was his business deal with the Honda motorcycle company. McQueen had a financial stake in the company's motorcycle marketing campaigns in America. His image and face were used to promote and sell motorcycles, and it worked really well. Sales went through the roof and exploded. That business partnership brought in millions of dollars long after he stopped riding motorcycles for the cameras. It was a branding move that was way ahead of its time, and there's even more to the story. McQueen's involvement in off-road desert racing wasn't just for fun and games. He used it to promote motorcycles and gear that he secretly owned shares in. That desert racing lifestyle became part of his brand and image, and companies paid him big money just to be seen using their products. He made millions of dollars without even talking about it publicly. His silence and mystery was his strategy for making money. When McQueen died in 1980, most people thought he died with no money left. Cancer treatments, lawsuits, and legal bills gave everyone that impression. But in reality, his wealth was scattered and hidden across secret bank accounts, property, and licensing rights. He had set up everything to stay private and hidden from the public. That plan worked perfectly for many years. Nobody knew how much money he was really worth. And it's still paying off today. His estate brings in millions of dollars every year from licensing his name, image, and film rights. His car and motorcycle collection alone is worth tens of millions of dollars. Steve McQueen didn't just build a career in movies. He built a fortune that keeps growing bigger long after his final movie credits roll. The king of cool became the king of leaving behind money. Hidden away in barns and locked storage units, McQueen's private collection turned out to be the most valuable treasure that Hollywood almost forgot about. Steve McQueen wasn't loud about his money. He didn't show off gold watches or pose in front of giant mansions for photos. Most people thought he lived a simple life, but behind the scenes, he was building something massive and huge. He spent money quietly and carefully, turning his love for machines into a private business empire. There was no newspaper coverage, no public records, just storage units and locked barns filled with valuable things. By the 1970s, McQueen had gathered one of the largest private motorcycle collections ever seen by anyone. Over 130 rare and vintage bikes were part of his secret stash. He liked British, German, and American motorcycle models, including Triumphs, Husqvarnas, and Indians. Some bikes were customized and made just for him, one-of-a-kind machines that collectors would later pay huge sums of money for. He didn't put them on display for people to see. He stored them in temperature-controlled garages on remote properties far from the city. His love for cars was just as serious and deep. McQueen owned nearly 60 high-end historic vehicles, many of them now considered impossible to replace. He had a 1963 Ferrari 250 GT Lusso, a Jaguar XKSS, and the actual Mustang GT 390 from the movie Bullitt. He also kept a rare Porsche 917K, one of the most famous racing cars ever made in history. That car alone sold at auction years later for over $14 million. McQueen wasn't just collecting these things for fun. He was putting money into assets that would grow in value over time. Each bike and each car was picked with careful thought. Most had a story or racing background that made them special. He didn't buy them to sell quickly or show off to friends. He bought them because he understood long-term value in physical, unique objects that nobody else could have. What shocked many people came years after he died. In 2006, a dusty old barn in New Mexico was opened by his estate managers. Inside, they found an untouched treasure room with dozens of motorcycles, stacks of helmets, leather jackets, original film scripts, and even race gear with his name stitched inside the clothing. It had sat there quietly for many years, completely forgotten by everyone. Experts who looked at everything and made a list estimated the total value at over $30 million. That barn discovery became a turning point in how people viewed McQueen's wealth. Up until then, most people thought his estate was simple and basic, maybe some leftover film earnings and some land, but the barn showed a deeper layer of wealth that wasn't obvious to see. There was like a time capsule of Hollywood royalty and fame. The items inside were museum-quality pieces, and most had never been seen by the public before. He also had smaller but high-value collections like vintage watches, signed photos, and one-of-a-kind film props, all stored in private safes and vaults. One of his Rolex Submariner watches, for example, sold for over $234,000 at auction. Another rare timepiece, a Heuer Monaco, worn in the movie Le Mans, went for $2.2 million. These weren't just showpieces to look at. McQueen wore them, used them in real life, and then stored them away safely. McQueen's secret assets didn't stop at collectible items. He had partial ownership in racing teams, film licensing companies, and small businesses tied to gear and equipment. One of his quietest deals involved a desert racing company that used his image for promotions and paid money directly to his estate. He also had profit-sharing agreements in several of his movie contracts. Even if a film stopped being shown on TV, the licensing value didn't disappear. Another layer that few people know about is this. McQueen licensed his face and name during his lifetime in ways most stars didn't do. He had early rights deals with brands like Tag Heuer and Triumph Motorcycles. These deals, though small back then, allowed his estate to make big money decades later. Today, companies still pay to use his name, image, and old footage from his movies. That passive income now brings in millions of dollars every year without any work. What McQueen created wasn't obvious wealth that people could see. It was embedded wealth built into everything he did. It couldn't be seen from the outside, but it sat there gaining value over time. Every car, every contract, every dusty jacket in that barn told a piece of the story. He didn't build a flashy empire that showed off. He built a hidden one, and it turned out to be far more valuable than anyone imagined. Even his real estate choices were calculated and smart. He didn't live in the center of Hollywood like other stars. He owned remote properties in California and New Mexico. Some were large ranches, perfect for storing bikes and planes. Others were just quiet getaway spots where he could relax. These locations doubled as storage zones for his collections, well protected, private, and never shown to the press or public. One more surprise that people discovered: McQueen also collected old film reels of his performances. He stored multiple copies of his most famous scenes, along with personal notes he had written. These reels are now part of licensing deals that allow streaming companies to restore and reuse his footage. That's an income stream that didn't even exist when he died, but he set the foundation for it long before digital media took over the world. What McQueen built wasn't just a collection of cool stuff. It was a blueprint and plan for how a movie star could stay rich without always working. He turned his passions into property and mystery into money. And when it all came to light years later, people finally understood why he was more than just an actor. He was a brand, a businessman, and a legend whose story would outlive every paycheck he ever received. On November 7th, 1980, Steve McQueen died in Juarez, Mexico after having a secret surgery. He had mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive cancer caused by asbestos exposure, and chose to avoid standard U.S. treatments. Instead, he flew to Mexico to try laetrile, a banned, unproven substance made from apricot pits. The operation was risky, not approved by doctors, and desperate. He didn't survive the night and died. Back home in America, the newspapers rushed to report that McQueen died with no money left. They said cancer treatments drained all his money and his assets were gone. But the truth was far different from what they reported. The full value of his estate wasn't immediately obvious to anyone. What he left behind would only show its true worth years later. At the time of his death, McQueen's estate was valued at around $2 million. That figure only counted liquid assets like bank accounts, properties, and obvious holdings that people could see easily. It didn't include the rare bikes, vintage cars, royalties, and image licensing rights that would grow massively in value over time. His team didn't even know the full scope of what he owned. Many assets weren't documented and recorded until years after probate court finished. His will was written in January 1979, just under 2 years before he passed away. It named his children, Chad and Terry, as the primary heirs who would get most of his money. McQueen's ex-wife, Neela Adams, was completely left out and excluded. Barbara Minty, his partner at the time of death, was given some personal belongings, but not a large financial share of the estate. That decision surprised many people, especially since they were reportedly planning to get married soon. The most controversial part of the will was a legal clause that cut out any unknown or future children. That meant if anyone came forward later claiming to be his child, they'd automatically be denied any money. Not long after he died, a woman filed a lawsuit claiming her son was McQueen's child. She said she had evidence and asked for a share of the estate, but the court dismissed it because there wasn't enough proof. Even more surprising, McQueen's lawyer, Ed Hookstraten, admitted there were 2 other paternity claims that never went public. These were handled quietly behind closed doors without any publicity. They never reached the courts, and no financial settlements were disclosed to anyone. The existence of those claims showed McQueen's legal team expected disputes and trouble. His will was built to shut those doors early and prevent problems. Another legal problem came from his collection of valuable items. Some of McQueen's vehicles, bikes, and memorabilia weren't clearly tied to him on paper. This created confusion over who actually owned what. His family had to work with appraisers and collectors to verify authenticity and prove things were real. In some cases, they recovered lost items through private auctions and sales. That process took years and added millions of dollars to the estate's total worth. Chad McQueen, his son, took control of many licensing and branding decisions. He approved merchandise, restored vehicles, and worked with companies to protect his father's image. Terry McQueen, his daughter, managed other estate matters before her early death in 1998. After that, her share passed to her daughter Molly. Barbara Minty, though not a major heir, became a public figure tied to McQueen's legacy and helped promote his story. One unique asset McQueen left behind was his right of publicity. This refers to the legal control of his name, image, and likeness after death. Back then, not every celebrity had it secured properly. McQueen did, and that single right became one of the most valuable parts of his estate. Today, licensing deals using his image generate more income than his movies ever did during his life. Over time, the estate grew far beyond the initial estimate of $2 million. The New Mexico barn discovery, auction sales, and licensing agreements boosted the value into tens of millions. In 2015 alone, Forbes magazine listed McQueen as one of the top earning dead celebrities. His image was used in advertisements, racing events, and branded merchandise. That income is still flowing to his descendants today. There were also quiet legal battles happening behind the scenes. Some centered on royalties from films like Bullitt and The Great Escape. Others involved ownership of certain memorabilia that had been loaned out but not returned. The estate spent years tracking down items and defending McQueen's name from unauthorized use. Each victory added value and protected the brand. One lesser-known story, McQueen had planned to start a museum before he died. He wanted to showcase his bikes, racing gear, and film memorabilia in one place for people to visit. He had even begun organizing items for display. That dream was never realized, but parts of his collection have appeared in temporary exhibits across the world. These exhibitions continue to bring attention and licensing value to his name. Steve McQueen didn't just leave behind fame when he died. He left behind a brand so powerful it rebuilt entire companies decades later. After Steve McQueen died in 1980, his fame slowly faded away. The world moved on to new stars, new styles, and new stories. But in the background, something unexpected began to happen. Brands saw value in his face, his style, and everything he stood for, and they started making big money off it. By the 1990s, the licensing industry had exploded and grown huge. Vintage icons were in high demand, and McQueen's image fit perfectly. He wasn't just a movie star anymore. He represented toughness, coolness, and classic rebellion. That's what companies wanted to sell, and McQueen became their secret weapon. First big wave came through fashion companies. Barbour used a single photo of McQueen wearing one of their jackets and turned it into a $40 million campaign. It wasn't just clothing anymore. It was a lifestyle people wanted. That photo became one of the most profitable still images in marketing history. Tag Heuer followed next. The Swiss watchmaker brought back the Monaco watch, made famous in Le Mans. Their entire campaign centered on a shot of McQueen wearing it behind the wheel of a race car. The relaunch not only saved the brand, it pushed sales into record highs. McQueen's name had become a badge of authenticity and quality. Then came Ford Motor Company. The car maker revived the Bullitt Mustang multiple times using McQueen's connection as the key selling point. Commercials, posters, and special edition models all leaned on the legend of Steve McQueen. Even without speaking, his legacy sold cars, and collectors paid top dollar for those models because of that link to him. The real power came from how carefully the estate managed these deals. They weren't handing out licenses to just anyone who asked. Each contract focused on products that reflected McQueen's image perfectly. Classic, cool, masculine items. It wasn't just about money, it was about protecting a brand. That's why the strategy worked so well over time. Greenlight Licensing Group became the gatekeeper for all deals tied to McQueen's estate. They handled the legal side, trademarks, and product approvals, and they helped turn McQueen's image into a controlled business, one that grew each year. Forbes began tracking his posthumous earnings, and by the 2010s, he was one of the top earning dead celebrities in the world.